Welcome to everybody that's watching this recording, and welcome to those that are here live. So I really wanted to start this session talking about positive peace. And by positive peace, we're talking about peace beyond war. We're talking about positive peace beyond the absence of bullying in our high schools. And to build positive peace, an excellent place to start is with our high schools and with our Interact clubs, and help them create a culture of peace. So it's important as we develop our program here in District 5160 to focus on things that are important to our students. So today's presentation will be about a Youth in Peace in Action program, which is a wonderful example of positive peace. And if there's any time at the end of this session to have Q&A and tell us about who they are and what they need to know, how to sign up. First of all, my name is Tina Etcheverry, and people can just send me an email if they have questions. And we also have a website for YPA where they can go and get more information. So to introduce our speakers today and our guests, our speaker is Elizabeth Peacock. She may tell us more about herself, but she's the Director of Operations, New Gen Peace Builders, and she does the YPA implementation organization. Merima is the Assistant Program Coordinator, and so far as I can tell from all our interactions, she's really the critical part of getting this program done. So welcome, Elizabeth, and you can take it from here.
Great, thank you so much, Tina, and thank you all, those watching and those here with us today. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be here. Give me just a second, I'm going to share my screen. We've prepared a few slides. And so, yeah, so Tina, thank you so much for, I think, every time I can start a presentation thinking about positive peace, it's a good day, it's an exciting day. And so our plan, Marima's and mine today, is to take about 20-25 minutes, maybe just a smidge more, to talk about youth and peace in action, what it is, where it came from, and then talk about specifically how Rotarians and how young people in District 5160 can get involved. So as Tina said, my name is Elizabeth Peacock. I am the Director of Operations at New Gen Peace Builders, which is a nonprofit that I'll talk more about in just a moment, founded in 2014. And we were founded really to focus on peace education, training, and mentoring. And Youth and Peace in Action is one of the initiatives, one of the ways in which we do that with high school students in the United States. Merima, my colleague, I'll let her introduce herself in just a bit, is here as well, is one of our program managers. And so without further ado, would love to just dive right in. So over the next 20 or 30 minutes, we really want to cover with you all what is Youth and Peace in Action, or YPA. You'll hear us call it quite often. Where did it come from? Why does it exist? We want to talk a little bit, just a bit, about last year. In our first year of delivering Youth and Peace in Action, what happened and how is it exciting for this year? And we really want to spend our time talking about this year. In the 2022-23 school year, and what's available to high schools for YPA. We're going to present two key programs that are part of Youth and Peace in Action, called Leading Peace Project Teams and My Peace Builder Foundations. And along the way, we have several examples of student voices, so young people who've been part of these programs in the past and have been recorded to share kind of their learnings and their insights. We do want to make sure we give you all information about how you can sign up or how you can get support to be part of this initiative. And I'll encourage you all, Merima is here to answer any questions that come up, both in live Q&A at the end of the presentation, but also if you want to put any questions in the chat along the way, she can definitely respond as we're presenting. So we always like to start, and Tina alluded to this, excuse me, with this question of how do you build a culture of peace? It's a question that's been asked for centuries. One response, and something Rotarians have spent a lot of time thinking about through the partnership with a group called the Institute for Economics and Peace, is how do you build positive peace? How do you build systems and structures and relationships that make it possible for everyone to live well? But we like to answer this question of how do you build a culture of peace in this way? You do it in part by putting youth at the center. And so the UN in the 1990s did quite a bit of work on what would it take to develop a culture of peace and institute a culture of peace. That's a major initiative. One of the things they shared at that time, almost 30 years ago now, is the importance of having youth educated and youth at the center of peace efforts and peace building efforts. And so we acknowledge that, and we really believe that. We really believe it's notable that young people, so between ages 14 and 24, are the fastest growing demographic in the world, the largest and fastest growing demographic. And when you talk to young people, they are eager to be doing this work. They're excited to be thought of as peace builders, thought of as positive change agents versus as victims or perpetrators of violence, or as folks who are apathetic. It's really notable in the US. Our youth population is proportionally a little smaller, but young people here in the US have access to technology, access to leadership roles and capacities that don't exist in a lot of other places in the world. And so the United States is a perfect place to be doing this work with a very eager demographic of high school and university age students. And we know a lot of this, and we know the UN's continue to emphasize young people as peace builders and the importance because of a recent Security Council resolution called Resolution 2250, which called for full inclusivity of young people, called the Youth and Peace and Security Act, that came out a few years ago. And so a lot of the work we do is tied into how to bring that resolution to life. There was a major study done in consultation with that resolution that showed that young people, again, don't have access to tools and resources that make it possible for them to be peace builders, but that they really want to be doing this work if they're given the opportunity. So with all of that as background, Rotary becomes a really important piece of this equation. So Rotary International has a 100-year history of promoting peace. Rotary was at the founding of the United Nations and has a special place there. Obviously, peace is one of Rotary's 7 areas of focus. Programs like the Rotary Peace Fellowship have made it possible for over 1,500 individuals to be trained and receive master's degrees in peace and conflict resolution around the world. But as peace and peace building continues to evolve, Rotary as conveners, connectors, amazing change makers at the grassroots level has a really important role to play in facilitating the ability of young people in their communities to be trained and to become peace builders. And so Rotary is a really important part of this big culture of peace equation around the world. The other piece of the equation when it comes to youth and peace in action is New Gen Peace Builders. And so as I mentioned, we are a nonprofit. We were founded by a Rotary Peace Fellow, Patricia Schaefer, in 2014, with the idea that you could take a lot of the tools and skills and frameworks and knowledge that's garnered during a Peace Fellowship or during a master's program in peace and conflict studies, and you could make it available. You could develop a program that taught the same ideas and the same concepts to high school students or to young people. And so we started doing that work in 2014. We started with 18 high schools. And today you can see on the map the places where this New Gen Peace Builders initiative and programs have been delivered. And that includes the Youth and Peace in Action initiative, which we're going to talk about for the rest of the day. We've had 6,000 students, teachers, and Rotarians become certified over the last 9 years through these nonprofit programs. Last year, this Youth and Peace in Action initiative, which really was a way to scale and start to make available at scale a lot of this peace education content, became a reality. And it became a reality because in zones, Rotary zones 33, 34, which you can see here on the map, the international director, Peter Kyle, had a real passion for peace, had a history of working closely with the peace centers and the peace fellowships, and wanted to encourage the district governors and the districts in his zones to be part of an initiative where many districts came together to make peace education available to young people. And that initiative was called Youth and Peace in Action. And so it started last year in zones 33 and 34. You can see on the screen here some of the folks in each of the participating districts who were deeply involved in launching the initiative. And it became, the idea was to do something in zones 33 and 34, which is the sort of the mid-Atlantic and southeastern United States and Caribbean, that could be replicated and made available to districts initially all over the US and now all over the world. And so we're so excited and so pleased that District 5160 is one of the very first districts outside of zones 33 and 34 to say, we love the idea of youth peace education. We see the power and possibility in the Youth and Peace in Action initiative, and we'd like to make it real in our district. So huge thank you to Tina and some other folks who've been at the forefront of starting to expand this initiative just beyond zones 33 and 34. In doing YPA last year in zones 33, 34, here is how it worked and what happened. So we started with a kickoff event on International Peace Day, a virtual live stream kickoff that folks could attend. Coming out of that kickoff, any school or Interact Club or other service club that was registered for YPA could be part of an online course called My Peace Builder Foundations. And that course is still very much at the core of Youth and Peace in Action. I'm going to talk about it in just a minute, but it's an online course that they were able to be part of. In the spring semester, we offered a live training called Leading Peace Project Teams, focused on helping teams of young people do peace projects, which is still very much at the core of what Youth and Peace in Action has to offer this year. And then we concluded the year with a celebration that we call the United Celebration, where collectively all of the schools and clubs that had been involved were profiled, and key peace projects from around zones 33 and 34 were highlighted. In total last year, we had 318 schools sign up. We had 7,000 teachers, students, and community supporters register and enroll in our online platform. That resulted in delivering about 45,000 hours of peace education, so either online learning or live trainings for students to learn tools, skills, and frameworks related to being peace builders. And we ended the year with about 1,500 certified peace builders, so young people who completed either the My Peace Builder Foundations course or the Leading Peace Project Teams experience, or in some cases both. So we are thrilled with the results of last year, but we're really thrilled to be expanding Youth and Peace in Action, making it available again to schools this year. And that's where we're going to spend the rest of our time together today. Before we dive into what is YPA 2022-23 and how it works, want to share, to make this a little less esoteric, a little more real, just share a couple of reflections from students who were part of the programs, where they share a little bit about what they've learned, what they took away as key learning. So we're going to hear first from Spriha, who's going to talk a little bit about positive peace, which Tina already alluded to. Oop.
I think one of the biggest ideas about peace building is that we're used to thinking of creating peace just by eliminating or reducing what's bad and not working for us. And that's important, but it's not enough. Peace stems from creating good conditions for everyone. And it feels more like building and creating connections, so we don't have to spend so much time thinking about protecting and defending ourselves, but nurturing our relationships.
So that's Spriha, again, who you heard really took away the idea of negative positive peace. Another framework that students learn about through the program is called the 5 spheres of peace. And so we're going to hear a little bit from Ranaya and how she took that framework and leveraged it in developing a peace project.
I think if I didn't learn about the 5 spheres of peace, I might have thought a lot differently about what kind of violence I want to address and how to do a peace project. Because the 5 spheres of peace has ecological, I got really focused on environmental violence and how to create environmental peace. I live where we have what's called urban heat islands, and water levels are rising. The effects on communities, the economy, and mental health are huge, and students sometimes don't know how to make a difference. So I talked to a lot of experts on these subjects and did research and ended up creating a plan to bring environmental education connected to peace building to all of the schools in my area. For me, the environment really is a sphere of peace.
So we have what we've been able to do this year, I'll just say, is actually capture, you can see quite a few student voices, and we have others as well, of young people who were part of the programs last year. And we've actually built those into the course. So you see up at the top, hashtag YPA Voices. We take that very seriously, and we really do believe that young people's voices matter. And should be centered and should be at the forefront of everything we do. And so it's a pleasure always to get to hear their reflections, capture their reflections, and then make sure they're shared out with other young people. So how do they get shared out? How do we go about increasing the number of young voices who are empowered to build peace over the course of this year? We actually have, as part of YPA in 22-23, two key programs that schools or service clubs can be part of. And again, we focus on high schools for this particular initiative. One is called Leading Peace Project Teams. It is an experience for specifically clubs. And so because of our close association with Rotary and Rotary districts all over the US, that is oftentimes an interact club, but it doesn't have to be. It can be a key club, it can be a student government association, but it's an experience for service clubs. And so what happens in Leading Peace Project Teams is a service club decides they want to participate. And then within that service club, a team or multiple teams can be formed. And the smallest team size is 1. The largest team size is up to 10. So they engage, they form a team, and they are taken through a guided live virtual process to plan and implement a peace project. And we really believe at New Gen Peace Builders and in the YPA initiative in peace is both what do you know and how do you feel, but it's also what are you doing to build peace. And so Leading Peace Project Teams is all about doing projects, doing peace projects. The other component of YPA is really a little more academically focused. It is a 10-hour online course called My Peace Builder Foundations. And when a school or club signs up for My Peace Builder Foundations, this content becomes available to any teacher and any student that's interested in doing this course at the school. And so they can individually log in and complete modules, or there's actually a toolkit teachers can use. And so there's a way to really learn about peace and learn the fundamentals of peace building through My Peace Builder Foundations, or there's a way to really have a guided experience to do a peace project through Leading Peace Project Teams. And I want to talk just a little bit more about both of these, but it's at the core of everything we do is, again, this idea of taking academic frameworks and tools that are often taught in master's degree or graduate level programs on peace and conflict studies and making them feel real and relevant for high school students as they look at peace and conflict in their communities and in their lives. And so you can see up at the top of the screen just a couple of the frameworks we use. We look at a very famous framework called Galtung's Triangle of Violence, which helps all of us, including these young people, look at what's visible, what can you see in terms of violence happening around you, what's invisible, and what might be under the surface or less apparent, but is still a very real way people are experiencing harm. We look at the 5 spheres of peace, which you heard Renaya talk about. We really leverage the 8 pillars of positive peace, which were developed by the Institute for Economics and Peace. And many Rotarians have a familiarity with that framework now through some of the IEP tools that are available. And we do a lot of conflict analysis. So you can see one of the conflict analysis tools we use there on the screen as well. And so whether you're doing the online course or you're going through the Leading Peace Project Team's live virtual experience, you get exposure to these really important key frameworks. You can also see there on the screen, there's a tiny URL, and I'll ask Merima to chat it through, where you can go and see examples in 9 different categories of projects that students have developed over the past 8 years of being part of New Gen Peace Builders, including some that were done through YPA last year. So it gives you a real sense of what is a peace project, and we're also going to talk more about that in just a moment. So these core frameworks are at the center of everything we do. In the Leading Peace Project team's experience, I want to talk a little bit more about what that's like for these groups of young people. Teams start with, there is just a little bit of online learning to introduce some of the fundamental knowledge and tools. The team comes together and they decide, you saw those 9 categories on the last screen, they decide what they want to work on as a team. And then they come into actual live training sessions that are facilitated by folks who have been through this process before. So certified peace builders who have received additional training and are in a position to really guide a team through thinking about what's the real problem you're trying to solve. What are the root causes of what the violence you see happening in your community? What is a solution to that problem that's really going to move the needle? And so we use a framework called the Unleash design thinking process, which was developed by the UN to guide these teams through conflict analysis and idea generation and ultimately developing a project plan. As they're implementing their projects, they also get training and support and coaching from these peace builder guides, these certified peace builders, so they can come in at several different points and give a report on how it's going and get feedback on what's working, what's not working from folks who've been on this guided journey before. And the result is some pretty amazing projects in many cases. I think we are not going to watch, but I'll ask Merima to if she can find the link and chat through a case study called Rice for Life that I'll just share for about 1 minute. It's about a 6-minute video that we won't watch today, but it's a great example, I think, of what makes something a peace project versus a service project. And service projects are incredibly important, have a time and place. But when we talk about peace projects with young people, we are often talking about how can they develop something that is going to strengthen relationships in the community, or that is, again, going to look at some of the root causes of a problem and make a more of a systemic shift. And so this particular project took place in North Carolina. And the team was really concerned about food insecurity in their community and their neighborhood and wanted to look at their high school hunger drive. So pretty much every high school in the US has an annual hunger drive. People bring in canned foods and their high school was no exception. At their high school, the hunger drive was incentivized by weight. And so the homeroom that brought in the most pounds of canned food got a pizza party or a celebration. And that was incentivizing students to bring in foods that were really unhealthy or really not useful. So things like dog food or big tubs of lard or things that weighed a lot, but you might never actually want to eat. The other thing that wasn't being taken into consideration was the fact that their population at the school was a really diverse population, and the food pantry in their community was serving a large number of refugees and immigrants who were not able to access foods that they were familiar with, knew how to cook with, wanted to cook with. And so this team's project, this act of peace building, became to transform the entire hunger drive so that the food that was collected was rice, and they later added beans. So they called it #Rice for Life. They were able to collect 4,000 pounds of rice the first year they did it. And again, just shifting away from this not helpful way of doing a food drive to this way of doing the food drive focused on rice, got 3 times as many students at their school involved in donating foods, thrilled the local food pantry because rice was one of their most requested food items. And again, really just transformed how they could be of support in looking at food insecurity in their community. And so that project was quite a few years ago, I think actually about 7 years ago, and the school is still doing rice and beans as the food drive today. And so that's an outstanding example, I think, of what do we mean when we say a peace project. And again, this guided journey is designed to take these teams of students through what is a peace project, what's a peace project you want to do, and how does it make sense in your community. As I mentioned, if you're not doing the peace project component, or you're looking at more of a school-wide way to engage in youth and peace in action, there is this My Peace Builder Foundations course, which includes online content, but also this year we have introduced a teacher toolkit. So teachers who are interested in bringing in peace building concepts into their classroom, but not necessarily in a position to do a project with students, now have access to downloadable activities. They have a discussion guide. And students who complete this process get a downloadable certification that they can include on their CV, on their college transcripts, et cetera. So it's a really exciting program as well. In general, we often get asked, well, like, why should we do this? How does doing peace building work increase our students' capacities? How's it different than the service work we're already doing as a club? And so we do feel like many of the peace projects designed by young people, because their voices are at the center and because they go through this process of really looking at and analyzing the violence happening in their communities, result in better, more sustainable projects where students feel a real sense of ownership and feel that they're really making a difference. We also put a lot of emphasis on leadership skills and project management skills and team building. And so we're actually going to hear from Tomo in just a second, who is a student in California who's been through this program and really talks about the skills he learned from the program. Both my Peace Builder Foundations and leading peace project teams can lead to fulfilling service hour requirements or service verifications. Both do come with a certification. And when students become certified peace builders, we have quite a few other opportunities. So additional awards, opportunities for students to receive scholarships when they write about New Gen Peace Builders or Youth in Peace in Action as a core experience of their high school career. And we make available internship opportunities. So Renaya, who you heard from earlier, actually became an intern with us and was able to scale her peace project. And it's now being rolled out to 19 different high schools in Palm Beach County, Florida. So we are going to watch Tomo, and then I think I'm going to pause and we'll take some questions and then wrap up with what can we all do next?
At the start, I remember I was in a team of about 10 people, and we all wanted to do something different. As with most teams, everyone's going to have a lot of different opinions, and there's going to be some conflicting opinions as well. So we all used what we had just learned as part of the New Gen Peace Builders program. We learned a lot about conflict resolution. We learned a lot about how to deal with a large team specifically. And so we all sat down and we all specifically did our own research, and we said why our specific idea might be good. So we had maybe 10 different ideas at the start. There were a lot of people who wanted to go specifically into medicine and giving medical kits to maybe orphans abroad. There were some people who wanted to do specifically housing for homeless individuals. But all 10 of us had coalesced on this idea of wanting to do something global. And so by doing our own research and giving the pros and cons of each idea, we all came together and we all looked at these 10 ideas. And we thought about which one would be the most feasible, which one would have the most impact, and which one we could use our skills for. And by coming together and expressing all of our ideas together, laying out the pros and cons, I think we were all able to finally decide on this project to bring housing and basic necessities to orphans in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And really what all it took was coming together face to face, talking to each other directly, and really focusing on the fact that our main goal was to build peace abroad. That was our main goal. Right? And once we focused on that, once we focused on what would be the most feasible in our timeline, what would have the greatest impact, we were eventually able to decide on that project, specifically with orphans and housing in the Congo. And in the end, I think it was the fact that our entire team was all like-minded, we were all motivated, and we all wanted to do something global that we were able to decide on that. You know, if I've been in teams where we're not all around the same mission, and so when that happens, there are specific people who want to get their own way, right? But what we learned in New Gen Peace Builders was that if you're part of a team, you got to be part of the same mission and the same goal. And I think that's a big reason why we were eventually able to come to this one plan together.
Okay.
So as we head into taking questions, let me just jump to how does the funding for all of this work? And I'll have Merima chat through just a couple resources for the folks who are in the room with us. Then we'll make sure these get emailed out as well for those who want to learn more and share more. So as I mentioned, there are these two core experiences. There's leading Peace Project teams. And that's available to any service club in a high school, though probably in most cases will be leveraged and used by Interact clubs this year because of this close association with Rotary. And so the cost for each team to have that guided journey, to have some of the experiences you heard people like Tomo reflect on, and to do a peace project is $500 a team. And a school can fund that, but in most cases that is actually sponsored for the Interact students or for another service club by the local Rotary club. And we're going to talk more about next steps and how to express your interest at the end of the presentation, but $500 a team. The My Peace Builder Foundations course and the teacher toolkit that I described, that's actually available to an entire school, as I said, for $100. And so a school can go online and sign up and pay that $100, or in a few instances, we also have some Rotary clubs who have wanted to sponsor that cost for a local high school as well. And so as Marima's chatting through those resources, I think I'll pause here and open up my chat window and just see if there are any questions that folks have right now. Or Tina, anything you want to add before we go into sort of next steps and where folks can find more information?
Okay. First of all, I just sent a chat message to the person that logged on from Fairfield Sassoon Rotary, asking if she could unmute herself and just tell us who she is and her interest.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Garcia from the Fairfield Sassoon Rotary Club. We do have Interact clubs. And I developed an interest in this project. I would say it's been like 3-4 years maybe. When I attended a session, I believe it was a either the multi-club district conference or a zone conference, and there was a version of the Peace Builders project that was done. I think it was in Houston. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I want that. And in fact, I was there with Milt Smith, who's another person who works at the district level. He's the DEI committee chair. And he and I were so jazzed about it. And we approached the, at the time, incoming district governor and said, we want this. But he'd already had his goals and priorities set for his upcoming year. And, but we were on fire. We loved the idea. That one, I believe, was a violence prevention project. And it brought like 1,000 students, or I can't remember what number of students, but it was a large number of Houston students together. And I can't remember if it was like a day-long session or a multi-day session. And they worked in teams to build their own personal, direct peace building skills. And we were saying that, you know, we would love to bring this to our district, and we could actually, you know, maybe provide transportation to the students to come to one spot to address violence, because, you know, our young people are the ones who are the victims of gang or bullying violence. And if folks had peace building skills, to, you know, if we had like peace leaders in schools who we sponsored to come to this group training. And I know we're coming out of COVID and in-person experiences are only just starting up, but I love the idea of doing a massive project similar to that which was done in Houston. I mean, that was such an inspirational presentation. And Milt right now is traveling through Africa, and he's not, you know, here. But I'm sure he recalls how inspirational that presentation was. The idea of young people working together to combat gang, youth, family, whatever kind of violence in our communities. So I was very interested to see if that model still existed. And I see, that's not the model that was being presented, but is that something that might happen in the future, as we enter the COVID endemic era?
Yes.
Yeah,
Sorry,
so
it's a really, really long question. Sorry.
that's okay. It's a perfect question. And so Cynthia, yes?
Yes, and you know what? I have two screens, and I realize I'm looking at that screen, and I should move you here so I could look.
I do that all the time. So Cynthia, I think it's a perfect question. So I will try to answer it as pithily as possible. So that event, I mentioned New Gen Peace Builders is sort of the nonprofit entity, and we have a variety of different programs, and YPA is one of those. That's an experience called our Accelerator Summit. And so Houston, it wasn't 1,000 students, it was about 250 students. We could probably do
See how big I built it in my head?
I know, well, it felt that way. But yeah, that is one of our offerings that really is designed to bring a large number of students together over a couple of days. And we obviously have not done that since about 2019, late 2019, when we did the Houston event because of COVID. What we're seeing now, and I think a really interesting conversation to maybe be in with you all, is so Birmingham, Alabama is a good example. Rotary District 6860 is engaging schools in Youth and Peace in Action this year. So they're having the teams kind of go through this learning journey together over the course of the school year. And then they are hosting a international peace conference for all of Rotary in 2023 in May. But the youth conference will be run by New Gen Peace Builders and will be that 2-day experience. And so it's a way for all the students in Alabama who've been through some initial training and learning to come together. And Cynthia, as you said, spend 2 days in a totally different environment, looking at their personal peace building skills, talking about the projects they've planned, thinking about additional projects they could do. So we are starting to see kind of a synthesis of the virtual stuff we've been offering in COVID, like Youth and Peace in Action, with the in-person programs we were able to offer before COVID, and starting to see a way that they can fit together. I don't know if that answered your question. I guess the short answer is we love the Accelerator Summit. We should absolutely talk about the Accelerator Summit. And it is something that is still in the Rolodex of New Gen Peace Builders, but it's a little bit different than Youth and Peace in Action, which is where we've been primarily focused for the last 18 months with our US schools.
And yeah,
So let me add to that, Cynthia, because I have exactly the same enthusiasm for this program that I'm so glad to hear that you and Milt came away with. And I guess my commitment to Elizabeth and getting her here today to tell us about it is that we are bringing it to 5160. And we already have 2 schools that are in the process of signing up. Those 2 schools are Vacaville High Schools, because the superintendent of schools really wants to see it happen. And so our idea for 5160 is we roll out the MPF, the toolkits for $100 to as many high schools in 5160 as we can reach. And then we do the project team, the peace project teams for individual interacts, or high schools even if they don't have an interact club. And so my goal this year is to try to get 10 of those high schools engaged with the project teams. And we may not just focus on violence, but we'll focus on any aspects of peace that the students want to get involved in.
Yeah,
And
I think especially given the political climate, Fairfield or Solano County, where Vacaville is located, is kind of a mix of conservative and, or I would say we're probably the most conservative of the Bay Area counties. And so I think the students would also benefit from something like the Courageous Conversations class. That kind of stuff is built into it. Because we've had a lot of racist incidents in our community, and I think being able to deal with those types of conversations and building peace in that realm too. I mean, it's been a few years, but in Fairfield we had some young men at a high school drag a Black person in effigy, you know? Yeah,
All right.
it's a little county, you guys. So this is still like, you know, anything we could do to bring peace building skills to our young people would be amazing.
Okay, and so just to add to that, I really like the idea of trying to get 10 high schools involved, a goal for this year, and we've got 2, so there's 8 still to go. And then figure out some way to have a summit to bring them all together in the spring, where like that accelerator conference. And I don't know how we're going to do that. We haven't put anything in the budget. But I look at this year as the year that we try to build the program and get it off the ground. And by next May, whoever's on the grants committee for the district should be prepared to hear a grant proposal just specifically for this. And so I think we will find the funding this year. Hopefully clubs can fund. We have maybe a few Interact funds that we can use. And so we'll try to fund it this year for 10 different Interact clubs. And then maybe next year we can really launch a bigger program. So that's my vision.
And I would definitely want to put our hat in the ring. I'll talk to our youth board director in our club. And if you could send me like an email about the stuff, I will forward it to our club president and champion this.
Absolutely great. And what club is Milt Smith in?
Walnut Creek, but I don't remember which of the Walnut Creek clubs.
I'll find out. But I
You guys,
encourage
I have to
you.
take off. I have to lead a session at 10 o'clock, but I love this. I love new gen peace builder stuff, so I had to be here. Thank you everyone for your time.
And thank
I'll talk
you
to
for
you soon,
joining
Tina.
our session. Yes, thank
Thanks,
you.
Cynthia.
So let me just introduce Mark for those that don't know. He's a past district governor for 5160.
Fabulous.
And so he may know more history about this than I do. And that he could probably, and Joan, if Fred is there as well, I think we have been very lucky in having 2 past district governors on our conference call today. So Elizabeth, you were speaking to the right people.
Well, it's an honor, and it's been wonderful. Tina, do we need? Are we okay on time, or do we want to? We need to wrap up.
I was given no, other than at 10 o'clock. Oh, here's what Mark was saying, because he's now in the chat. Milt Smith is in the Walnut Creek Club. And so thank you, Mark, for letting us know. And I think we'll be following up both with Cynthia Garcia and Milt Smith. But we'll also be pushing this initiative a lot more in 5160. So a lot more people will hear about it. And I just want to thank you, Elizabeth, again, for being here today. An excellent, excellent presentation, and really laid out what we need to know. And we will let people know that they can go to your website and sign up, or they can come to me for more information, and I'll direct them to your website. So that's the process right now, and we really look forward to getting more going. Any last words from anyone? Joan?
Well, Fred in particular was saying, you know, there are certain aspects of this we can share with Rotaract. We in Berkeley do not have an enormous Interact program, but we do have an enormous Rotaract program. And there are a lot of things in here that rang a bell with us, thinking that we should share with them. And I look forward to looking at the video when it comes out, to now that we've heard the whole thing, to analyze that. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Joan. And we have done quite a bit of work with Rotaractors over the years as well, in addition to Interactors. So love that you see those connections in that synthesis.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you all so much. It's been a pleasure. And you do see our URL with a lot of additional information on our website, including ways to sign up if this floats your boat and your Rotary Club would want to sponsor. I guess my last note would just be that September 21st is International Peace Day, and we will be making a big announcement of Rotary clubs and high schools across the U.S. that are on board. And so if anybody wants to make sure your name's included, now's a key window, but schools and Rotary clubs can continue to sign up throughout October. So it's a key window. It's a perfect time to be having this conversation right now. And again, thank you so much. We look forward to being in touch with lots of folks soon.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks all.
All right. Well, I think we're supposed to return to our events lobby. So I will stop the recording. And again, thank you, everyone.